Hello and welcome back to my kitchen. Today I'm very excited to announce a new cooking series here on the channel, or segment I should say, and that will be recipes from the Elder Scrolls Cookbook. I have been dying to break into this one and had a lot of fun looking through all the recipes and trying to figure out which one I wanted to do first. And as Morrowind is my favorite game of all time, I thought we would start with a recipe from the Vardenfell area, which is going to be our Kwama egg quiche. Looks absolutely delicious in the book. I'm hoping it turns out just as good as it looks. So let's get started with our pie crust. We are going to need 1 cup of all-purpose flour, 1 cup of rye flour, a half a teaspoon of salt, 6 tablespoons of cold cubed butter, 1/3 cup of ice water, and a seasoning mix, which they call Stormcloak seasoning in the book. And it consists of 2 teaspoons of dried dill, 2 teaspoons of fennel seeds, and a half a teaspoon of a spice called Grains of Paradise. It's kind of a fancy pepper, I believe, from the Middle Eastern region. And also 1 teaspoon of mustard powder. You're going to want to grind up your fennel seeds, your dill, and your Grains of Paradise in either a mortar and pestle or in a spice mill, and then combine it with your powdered mustard. And of this, we are going to need a half of a teaspoon of the seasoning. So let's get everything started here. Let me kind of mix our dry spices in first so we can get those really well incorporated in. Get our 2 flours together. Alright, let me get that in. First, we want to gently break up our butter into the flour mixture. It smells good already, believe it or not. The spice mix smells so good. And we want to get this nicely crumbled up in there. Until it's about the size of a small pea. You'll have to keep working, getting it off your pastry blender here, and then right back in. That looks pretty good. Pie doughs tend to come together rather quickly. Normally I would do this in my food processor, but, you know, it's so loud, and it's only a single pie crust. I thought, well, we would just do it by hand today. Alright, that is good. Let's get our water poured out. So what we need is 1/3 of a cup of ice water. And I'm not going to add all this in at once. I'm just going to add a little bit at a time, because sometimes you do not need all of the water. You just want enough to bring it together. And sometimes you need a little bit more. That's kind of why doing this in a food processor, it comes together really quickly. If I'm doing a lot of pies at once, that's my preferred way to do it. I think this is actually probably going to take all of that and maybe a little bit more. The reason you use cold water when you're making a pie crust is it helps keep your butter cold, which is what ensures a nice light flaky crust when it's baked. Those little pockets of butter kind of melt out and leave those little flaky layers in your pie crust as it bakes. Yeah, this is probably going to need a little bit more water. Come together. Now, see, it doesn't want to hold. It's trying to, but there's still just a tad too much dry flour in there. So let's go in with about 1/8 of a cup of water here. Alright, let me see if I can get this to come together now. Alright, a little bit more water. We're almost there. Let me grab my cutting board and see if we can get this kneaded out and everything all incorporated. Am I going to have enough room? I don't know. Alright, we can make it work. Now, it's still a little bit dry in spots, but I think once we get this all out on the board where we can really get a good look at it, it will come together nicely. It's one thing to hold together. Now, you don't need this like a bread dough, but you do want to make sure it's forming into a nice ball, which this is. So, kind of get your pieces back together. Whoa, sorry about that. Don't mean to move you guys around. Yeah, this is very malleable, which is exactly what we want. Now all I'm going to do now is wrap this up in some cling film, and I will let this chill for a half an hour in the refrigerator before we can roll it out and use it. Alright, there we go. Nice little wrap up, and then straight into the refrigerator for a half an hour. Alright, while the dough is chilling, I have already gently toasted up about 2 cloves of minced garlic in a little bit of butter. 1 tablespoon of butter, exactly. To this, we need to add let me flip, sorry about that. Flip my recipe here. We need to add 1 chopped medium-sized tomato. Mine's actually a little bit bigger because I had half of another tomato and I decided to go ahead and throw it in here. And we're going to just drop this in, and I'm going to return this to the stove and allow it to gently cook for just a short amount of time, just until the tomatoes kind of get a little bit warm and just start to break down. And we will use the sliced tomatoes here in a little while. So let me get this on the stove, and I will bring you guys back after it's kind of all cooked down a little bit. Alright, I have gotten our pie crust out of the refrigerator, and I've already rolled it out. It rolled out really good, very nice and smooth. And now we need to put it in a 10-inch tart pan. And let me see if I can get that transferred over here. Easiest way I found is kind of just roll it up on your rolling pin. And then lift it up and slide it under. And now let's see if we can get this fitted down in there and into the little crevices of our pan. We'll come back and trim the edges off here as soon as I get it all trimmed or fitted down in there. You just kind of want to lift and gently coax it down in. If it cracks, that's okay. You just want to make sure you go back in and fill up any cracks. And it should come together nicely for you. The edges of the tart pan are fluted, so it will require just a little bit of gentle coaxing to get that in there. Make sure it's all the way down. You want to, when you're rolling out your pie crust, you want to make sure that you get a nice even crust. I think we're there. Let me get the excess trimmed off here. The easiest way I've found to do that is just kind of pick it up and with the back of your knife just kind of scrape along the edge of the pan. And that takes it off nicely without dulling your knife edge. Alright, let me just go back in. Make sure we have a nice fit all the way up into the side of our pan. Thin out any areas that are a little bit thicker than others. Alright, I think this is good. So let me find a fork. And we're just going to gently prick a bunch of holes in the bottom of our pie pan, or our pie crust. And this will help keep the crust from rising up while it's baking. Kind of like to go in different directions, make sure I get a really good perforation. Alright, let's move on to the next part. Move that out of our way. Get everything back over here where we need it. So for the next part, we are going to need 4 eggs. And I'm going to dump them right into my bowl here. And give them a quick little whisk. Just break up your yolks. Get those all well incorporated in together. Next, I'm going to add in a 1/2 cup of milk. And I need to whisk this as well. Alright, let me grab a spoon real quick. Rubber scraper works as well. And I'm also going to add into this about 1 teaspoon of salt. And a 1/2 cup of grated Parmesan cheese. And 1 cup of cheddar cheese. And that gets dumped right in. There we go. And just gently stir this around. And the last thing to go in is our tomato mixture that we did over on the stove. I have cooked the tomatoes down to where they've become tender, but they haven't quite started to break apart yet. And I've allowed it to cool so it doesn't cook the eggs as soon as I drop them in here. And that just goes right in as well. Let me get this all stirred together. Alright, let me bring our pie shell back over. I think I have pie crust on the bottom. Make sure you have any crust that's stuck to the bottom. Remove it. You don't want it burning in the bottom of your oven. There we go. And then this just gets poured right into our pie shell. I can do this so you guys can see it. go. Make sure you spread your ingredients around really well, because you want to get that in every bite. And then before we put this in the oven, we have one final step to do, and that is the sliced tomatoes from earlier. We just want to lay these across the top, and these, when this bakes, it's supposed to bake down into the quiche itself. Hopefully I have enough sliced ones here, maybe. Oh, let's go with that big one there. And I'll shove that one right kind of over there. Alright, I'm going to put this in the oven on 350 for, let's see, about an hour, or until the egg mixture is done and has kind of bubbled up over the top of the tomatoes. So I will see you when this is done. Alright guys, the quiche is done. It was in the oven for an hour, and then I let it cool on the counter for 10 minutes to let it kind of set up and cool down enough to be able to take the outer ring off. The tomatoes didn't quite sink down like I thought they were going to, but it still looks good. So let's get in here and see if we can slice this up a piece. Alright guys, sorry. I had a little bit of problem with the camera after I cut the first piece, so here it is again. I'll say that the rye flour doesn't really come through on the crust. It tastes more like a nice hearty wheat crust than a rye. It's good. I think a little bit too much garlic. Maybe next time I make it, I'll back down to maybe a half to 1 clove instead of the full 2 cloves. But yeah, it's nice and cheesy. It's cooked all the way through. It's nice and firm the way it should be. So yeah, I definitely enjoyed the recipe. I had a lot of fun making it. Alright, before I leave, let me remind you guys of the playlist that JPica Death and I have going on our channels of cooking videos submitted by you, our YouTube friends and family. If you guys have a cooking video that you'd like to share and have added to the playlist, let either JPica or I know, either in the comment section of our latest cooking videos or through Discord. We'll be happy to take a look at those and get them added to the playlist. There's been a lot of really good submissions on there so far, and we're looking forward to many more in the future. For everybody who's participated all so far, thank you so very much. You have really made this a very fun experience, and I hope it has been that for you as well. But for now, thank you for joining me. I've been Vault Girl. I hope you guys have enjoyed, and I hope I see you in the next one.